Kings fans, the season is right around the corner. We got the first preseason game against the Warriors coming up in a few days. Got the first regular season game coming up in about 3 weeks against the Timberwolves. We'll see the new look Timberwolves against, everybody's kind of forgetting that the Kings are kind of a new look team as well with DeRozan. So I'm really excited about that. But before we get into all the excitement of this new NBA season, I kind of wanted to look back at last year because I feel like we got to process last year before we can really fully ready ourselves for this year. It helps to kind of understand where the team's at now. If we do look back at last year, at the positives and the negatives, because there were some very high highs and extremely, extremely low lows. Some of the worst losses I've ever seen in my life came last year. But yeah, man, coming into last year, we were coming off the excitement of finally making the playoffs. We had the origin of the Beam, the start of the Beam team. Like, the vibes the season prior were immaculate. Like, one of the coolest stories in sports, I'd say, of like the last decade. Like, it was so sick. Obviously, I'm a biased Kings fan, but the playoff ratings of that Kings Warriors series would support my theory there. But coming off all of that, vibes were still high going into the year. And I feel like the way the Kings played those first couple of months, had Kings fans feeling pretty good about themselves. We played well in the in-season tournament, obviously lost to the Pelicans, which little did we know would kind of foreshadow the end of our season, in the what's that thing called? Not the in-season tournament. There's another tournament. The play-in tournament. There's just so many now, It used to just be playoffs when I was a kid. But anywho, we were playing really well against the best teams in the league. And then around the new year, we started losing to the worst teams in the league and just started crumbling in the fourth quarter and in clutch time, which the year prior was our strength. Fox was the clutch player of the year. He still did well in the clutch last year, but what was one of our strengths became one of our weaknesses. And I feel like all those demoralizing losses to, Milwaukee and Phoenix, and then also losing to the Spurs, the Pistons, the Wizards, we're literally losing to the worst teams in the league. And then we have these leads against some of the best teams in the league and they just couldn't hold on. I feel like we could have easily, we finished 46 and 36, which, by the way, was pretty respectable and one of the toughest Western conferences we've ever seen. But I feel like we could have easily had 50 wins. I forget, there was a stat where there was 13 games. I really wish I could remember the exact stat, but had something to do with fourth quarter and clutch and blowing leads, and maybe it was something about free throw shooting too, because we were the worst free throw shooting team in the league last year, which that didn't help anything as far as closing out games, because that game in Milwaukee, if we just make our free throws, we're winning that. And there were a lot of games, obviously not as bad as that, but they were kind of the same deal. If we make our free throws, we're winning the game. So I think we could have easily gotten 4 more wins out of that mess. And you can make the argument we should have had 8 more wins. But obviously, you win some, lose some. We probably won some games we shouldn't have won, yada, yada, yada. But one of the biggest differences last year from the year prior, obviously, teams were just kind of more healthy. And the Kings were less healthy. They still were, relatively healthy. But their offense, at least their offensive rating, dropped a little bit. I think it was kind of overstated and over-exaggerated how much they fell off. And then, nobody ever talked about how the Kings defense improved, going from 24th in defensive rating to 14th. And they were a top 5 defense after the All-Star break. So, I'm willing to sacrifice some offense if our defense is playing that well. I don't know if we'll be a top 5 offense again this year. But even if we're top 15, as long as we can get our offense into that top 10 range, I'd be feeling pretty good about the Kings. But yeah, we went from first 2 years ago, literally set the record, to 13th this past season. And if it were the year prior, we would have been 4th or 5th. So the league kind of just passed this up, which isn't great. But I think one of the stats too. I'm sorry that I don't have them right in front of me right now. But if we had if we were even league average with our free throw percentage, our offensive rating would have gone up to top 5 or top 7, something crazy like that. So us being the worst free throw shooting team in the league was honestly kind of the story of the year. as far as like I think it had the biggest impact on the team because, like I said, we played the best teams in the league very well. I remember at some point we were like 8-3 or something crazy like that against the top three teams in the West, which were the Thunder, the Timberwolves, and the Nuggets. Which I mean, those aside from the Mavericks, which we also I thought played well against them. But no, those top three teams in the West, like teams handled their business, And I think if we got to a 7 game series against any of those teams, we'd have at least given them a series, like gone 6 or 7 games. I truly believe that. But, we couldn't even get out of the play-in, so it didn't even matter. But, Fox was incredible last year. Domas was fantastic. Somehow both of them got snubbed from the All-Star game. I won't get into all of that, but that was pretty disappointing last year. And then Malik Monk should have been the sixth man of the year. So we kind of got disrespected and then couldn't even back it up with play. I was really hoping we could get a 7 game series and kind of ball out a little bit. Obviously that didn't happen, but that's what we got this year to prove some of the haters wrong. But yeah, obviously Fox, amazing. Domas, amazing. Keegan Murray as well. I think he kind of went under the radar as well as far as his development. He developed into one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, literally getting the toughest assignments while still having the best defensive numbers. I keep forgetting the stats, and I'm so sorry, guys. This won't happen again, I promise. I'm kind of in a time crunch here. Got to get this video all made and everything. I won't dive into my whole personal life. But his three-point shooting did drop a little bit, but he was also taking tougher shots. Teams weren't just leaving him open in the corner anymore, which I feel like he responded well to. He had some really nice games where he was kind of showing off his mid-range. I still wish he'd be more aggressive, more consistently. He'd show flashes, he'd dunk on people and actually take it to the rack. But, I'm not concerned about his offense at all. And his defense, I thought he could be a good 3-and-D guy, but he's legitimately turning into a really strong plus defender who we can throw on somebody's best wing, and that paired with Keon being on the guard, the team's best guard. And Fox led the league in steals. I don't think people understand how good our defense was last year. And individually, these guys are good defenders. I'm really excited to see what Devin Carter adds to the team when he's healthy. Another thing that kind of held the Kings back a little bit was Kevin Huerter just forgetting how to shoot the ball. And then, he got hurt, which actually ended up being a positive thing because that gave Keon a lot more playing time. Who knows? He probably would have gotten that regardless because I don't know if we could have really played Huerter much more. Because when he got hurt, he was still struggling. So I think Huerter coming off the bench is going to be good for the team. It's looking like Keon's going to be the starter. But again, I keep talking about this year. I'm just so excited. But let's finish out this last year so we can kind of move on with our lives, huh? Alex Len somehow graded out as a top 10 defender, per, minutes played, obviously. I still don't understand that, and that kind of makes me wonder about these, stats that are out there. When he got minutes, I thought he played really well, especially on the defensive side and, rebounding and stuff like that. He was able to, do those dribble handoffs well enough. Obviously, he's no Domas or anything, but, he was able to, run the offense from time to time, too. I'm glad that he's back because, he's just a solid body to have on the team. He knows the offense, knows the system and all that, has some rapport with our guys. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Overall, it was just a really tough Western Conference. One of the most competitive we've ever seen. And we were right there, super close to getting a top 6 seed, which could have changed things maybe. But obviously, the season ended after losing to the Pelicans for the 6th freaking time. Absolutely insane. But, if they win the games they're supposed to, they probably could have gotten, a top 4 seed, legitimately. And, they showed flashes of being that. There was a point, like I mentioned, where they were, 8-3 or something like that against the top teams in the West. And, obviously the Mavs went on an absolute heater at the end of the season and went on to the finals. But I thought the Kings played well against them, too, in those, back-to-back games. One of them was the game where Luka fell on Malik and hurt his knee. Still don't forgive him. Still can't forgive him for that. And I think Monk has those games circled against the Mavericks, kind of ball out then. But yeah, also like that Monk injury, I didn't even mention that yet. Like that was a really tough blow at the end of the season too. And like, obviously the Pelicans were without Zion, but that was really tough, man. Came at like the worst time possible, as we're trying to like make a playoff push. And yeah, we just kind of didn't have enough like offensive power once Monk went down to kind of keep up with these other teams. But yeah, man, I mean, like, I think most people, if you look back at last year, the thing they'll remember is putting an end to the Warriors dynasty, at least like as we know it with, Steph and Clay. Clay obviously had like one of the worst games of his career against us. Keegan went off. Like, we had some really good games from our guys, our young guys. But, this year I'm hoping we have something with a little more substance to hang our hats on, at the end of the year. But, last year kind of just felt like a hangover year. Coming off the first playoff appearance in 16 years, these things don't just happen overnight. It takes time. And given everything, I think the Kings are in a good spot. It's going to be a really tough Western Conference again, but I think the Kings will be in the mix. Which, if you take a step back, and you don't even have to take a big step back, it's pretty crazy that we can say that about our favorite basketball team from Sacramento. Because overall, over the majority of our lives, I mean, I'm 25, so maybe if you're like 60, it's different. But most of my life, the Kings have been ass. And now they're like, I can have these conversations about them. Oh, can they be a top 4 team in the West? And that's pretty cool on its own. Obviously, that's like not where we want to be long term. But at least we like every night we tune in and we're legitimately hoping that our team can win. And there's like a chance that they actually will. And I think that's cool. That's something that you shouldn't take for granted. But, they don't hand out participation trophies. And we got some higher expectations for this team now in like year 3 of Mike Brown. And I'm really excited, man. I mean, getting a guy like DeMar DeRozan, those guys don't usually walk into Sacramento. So, pretty stoked about that. But yeah, I'll have another video coming out soon. Probably just going over the off season. So like talking about DeMar, Malik, some of the other things, maybe the draft as well. And then after that, it's just going to be all about this upcoming season, which is fast approaching. So I'll be having a lot more content coming out. Appreciate you guys watching, and subscribe if you want, if you like me. If you don't, I would be surprised if you don't like me and you're still listening. That's pretty crazy. At that point, it's like, okay, come on, be real with yourself. You kind of like this a little bit. But yeah, man, go Kings, light the beam, and I'll see you next time, huh?